of hey hora. First declension feminine, pure alpha, rho or vowel, hora, horas, hora, horan, hora. Horai, horon, horais, horas, horai. What's the declension of hey phone? First declension feminine, pure eta. Phone, phones, phone, phonane, phone. Phonai, phonon, phonice, phonus, phonai. What's the declension of hey doxa? First declension feminine mixed. Doxa, doxase, doxe, doxon, doxa. Doxai, doxone, doxice, doxus, doxai. What's the declension of ha prophetes? First declension masculine. Prophetes, prophetu, prophete, prophetane, propheta. Propheti, prophetone, prophetis, prophetus, propheti. What's the declension of ha logos? Second declension masculine. Logos, logu, logo, logon, loge. Logoi, logon, logois, logus, logoi. What's the declension of ta ergon? Second declension neuter. Ergon, ergu, ergo, ergon, ergon. Erga, ergon, ergois, erga, erga. Good job. What's the declension of ha archon, archonta? Third declension, masculine, feminine. Archon, archontas, archonti, archonta, archon. Archontes, archonton, arcusi, archontas, archontes. What's the declension of ta soma, somatas? Third declension, neuter. Soma, somatas, somas, soma, soma. Somata, somaton, somasi, somata, somata. What's the declension of ha, he, ta? Ha, tu, to, ton, hoi, tone, tois, tus. Good job. Hey, taste, te, tain, high, tone, tice, tus. Ta, tu, to, ta, tone, tois, ta. What's the declension of ago, su? Now, sorry, let me pause for just a second. So this is what this chapter's on. So these next two, this block right here, this is the next chapter. Okay, so memory work, here it is. What's the declension of ago, su? First and second person pronouns, ago, amu, amoy, ame, he mace, he moan, he mean, he must. Su, soy, se, who mace, who moan, who mean, who must. What are the principal parts of luo? Luo, luso, elusa, leluca, lelumai, eluthane. What's the conjugation of luo in the present active indicative? Luo, lues, lue, luamen, luete, lucy. Infinitive, luane. What's the conjugation of luo in the present middle passive indicative? Luamai, lue, luetai, luametha, luesthe, luontai. Infinitive, luesthai. What's the conjugation of a me in the present indicative? A me, a, esti, esmen, este, a si. What's the conjugation of luo in the imperfect active indicative? Eluon, elues, elue, eluamen, eluete, eluon. What's the conjugation of luo in the imperfect middle passive indicative? Eluamen, elu, eluata, eluametha, eluesthe, eluonta. What's the conjugation of ami in the imperfect indicative? Amen, ace, ain, amen, ate, ason. What's the conjugation of luo in the future active indicative? Luso, luces, luce, lusamen, lucete, lususi. Infinitive, lusane. What's the conjugation of luo in the future middle indicative? Lusamai, luce, lucetai, lusamatha, lucisthe, lusantai. Infinitive, lucisthai. What's the conjugation of a me in the future indicative? Esamai, esse, estai, esamatha, esesthe, esontai. What's the conjugation of luo in the first aorist active indicative? Elusa, elusas, eluse, elusamen, elusite, elusun. Infinitive, lucai. What's the conjugation of luo in the first aorist middle indicative? elusamein, eluso, elusita, elusamatha, elusisthe, elusanta. Infinitive, lusisthai. What's the conjugation of lambano in the second aorist active indicative? Elabon, elabes, elabe, elabamen, elabete, elabon. Infinitive, labane. What is the conjugation of lambano in the second aorist middle indicative? Elabamain, elabu, elabata, elabamatha, elabestha, elabanta. Infinitive, labesthai. What's the conjugation of luo in the perfect active indicative? Leluca, lelucas, leluca, lelucamen, lelukate, lelukasi. Infinitive, lelucanai. What's the conjugation of luo in the perfect middle passive indicative? Lelumai, lelusai, lelutai, lelumitha, lelusthe, leluntai. Infinitive, lelusthai. What's the conjugation of luo in the pluperfect active indicative? Elelugain, elelukes, eleluke, elelukemen, elelukete, elelukeson. What's the conjugation of luo in the aorist passive indicative? Eluthane, eluthes, eluthe, eluthemen, eluthete, elutheson. Infinitive, luthani. What's the conjugation of luo in the future passive indicative? Luthesamai, luthese, luthesatai, luthesamatha, luthesisthe, luthesantai. All right, let's go. Yesu huye David, eleison me hamarton. All right, take a seat. All right, and I apologize. I did not send out the key, really, because I did my best to not work over the break. Today, actually, I was listening to this great little lecture, and he gave this quote that was just terrifying. And he said, it was a professor from Baylor, and he said, we distract ourselves from our distractions with distractions. So three level or 2 levels of distraction from what we should be doing. And he drew this really interesting point that kind of cut me to the core of when Jeremiah, right in the middle of Jeremiah's prophecy, when he pronounces why Israel will be thrown, and he doesn't say because of their idolatry. He doesn't say, because whatever, they didn't love their neighbor, or maybe things we would expect. He says, because you did not celebrate my Sabbath. And they're actually in exile for the number of years that they were supposed to have given the land a Sabbath and a Jubilee year when they were in the land. It's kind of brutal when you think about it. Like, they weren't thrown out of the land, for murdering or whatever. They were thrown out of the land for not resting, which is a very faith-filled thing. So, anyway, so I tried to rest. His name is Ralph Wood. He's in their honors college. What does she teach at Baylor? Oh, does she work with Alan Jacobs at all? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So Alan Jacobs and Ralph Wood both teach in the honors college. Yeah, Ralph Wood, he's a Tolkien specialist. He was actually at Wake Forest for a while. Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah. He does. He has several, yeah. I'm trying to think of his the most, probably, that sounds right, yeah. He has a handful of them, but anyway, yeah, so it was that lecture was, golly, what was that called? Actually, I guess there were 2 lectures I was listening to today. The one was more on, it was a really good, Benedictine, our job isn't to save culture, our job is to disciple, and as disciples are raised up, things happen. Our job isn't to create, moralists. Our job is to create people who love Jesus. I digress. All right, so all I have to say is I've got the text here for any particular problems, sentences that are problems. They're not problems. Anyway, any particular sentences that were more tricky, if there were any. Did any kind of jump out to you or stand out to you as I would struggle with this one, or what's going on, or whatever? You didn't do them. Okay, that's, again, no shame at all. Do you have any? Okay, great. Practice and review. Okay, awesome. I'm just going to zoom in. Excellent. Well, let's look at that. So that is actually one of the forms we memorize, right? So if we go prophetes, prophetu, prophete, prophetein, propheta. So you're right. There's our form right there of propheta. And then if we look at the plural, propheti, propheton, prophetais, prophetas, propheti. So it is just as singular. Another way you could check in, you could check when you're reading Latin or Greek, is applicable to both, is, for example, our Father who art in heaven. Art. What in the world is art? Isn't that funny? You said it, hopefully, thousands of times, right? You're like, our Father who art in heaven. Well, the Latin, since I know you both had some Latin, the Latin of it would look like, let's see this. Pater Noster. Or maybe you know the Latin. Do you know the Latin? Excellent. Qui es in Hylis or Chalis. Good. Okay, pause right there. Art. In the Latin, it's S. So, and what is S? Not quite. There it is. Beautiful. This is a second person singular verb. You who are in heaven. Okay? So again, in the King James English, that becomes art. And it's there, and we see it all the time. What I want to highlight is Pater Noster is also... I did a great job boxing that. Pater Noster is a vocative singular. Our Father. But even if I couldn't tell, let's just say I couldn't tell who that is, singular or plural. Yeah. My verb is actually going to give me a clue. Kids, come here. Now in English, come is the same as come. Son, come here. Sons, come here. But in Latin and in Greek, those verbs would look different. Because I'm either talking to a singular you, or it's a plural you. Could be a big hint. It's not always second person. For example, I could say, Lucas, we are in the middle of class. Well, even though I used a vocative to draw your attention, then I switched to a first person plural verb. So it doesn't always help, but it can be a tool to help you see, oh, am I addressing multiple people and then I'm talking about what they, you, are doing, singular or plural. Or am I addressing, a singular person and then talking about what you, singular, are doing? Anyway, all I had to say is that could be it. And sure enough then, when we see our verb here in number 7 is what? Great. And that's where I just got a compound bow, a new bow for Christmas. And there's an important distinction. I think this shows up in sciences as well, right? Between accuracy and precision. Thank you. Accuracy and precision. And accuracy means wait, okay, hold on. I'm going to mess this up. I know what they mean, but I can't remember which noun goes with which thing. Accuracy means you hit the bullseye. Darn it. Precision means you hit the bullseye. Accuracy means you're grouping them together. Is that right? Oh, yes. Okay, see, I remember some things from philosophy of science. Okay, so precision is hitting the bullseye. Okay, accuracy means you're consistently, what in archery we call grouping. Does that make sense? That's exactly right. So that's right. So you were accurate. And that's not nothing, okay? Because I think one of the fundamental things that is wrong with all of our minds is we are scattered. So there's something that's really good about, even though it's wrong, there's something really good about going, oh, this must be a plural vocative with a plural second person. Oh, okay. Oh, I think, you know what they probably do? They probably just say the plurals are the same as the first person feminine plurals. Which again, that's one thing that I've learned over years of teaching Latin and Greek and some other languages too to kids is it's just so important to get it in one place as kind of a sheet, and then and then write that sheet upon your heart, eventually. So anyway, all I want to say is we've got a singular vocative, and then we've got a singular. You have good words, right? And we get another one, right? And you see. Good. So we have multiple present active indicative, second person singular verbs in that one. Oh, and it's a question. I don't know if that throws you ever. That was like my favorite thing in Spanish is they just put the question mark like up front, right? And you're like, yeah, okay, this is going to be a question. Whereas in English, Latin, Greek, sometimes you don't know it's a question until you get to the end and you're like, I could have really used a clue up front, some kind of interrogative, which Latin actually more typically will do than Greek does. So anyway, you'll have some kind of inclinic or interrogative adverb, why or whatever. Okay, you got another one.
I have another one.
Okay.
It appears that he is very used to
Okay, great. All right, good. And so where are you seeing a genitive plural? Okay, excellent. Okay, so there, and this is totally fine. Again, that's where your problem is. Good. Now let's wipe your brain out for just a second and go back to the beginning. See the thing for what it is. So we're looking at arremo, right? Is that what we're looking at? Okay, good. So let's break down that word. Let's analyze. Let's dissect that word. Where should I split it? Between our stem and our ending. Good. So we've got our stem from eremos, right? Good. So and sure enough, one thing that's kind of weird about this, it looks like te is going with it. Now, why is te? Okay, good. So it looks masculine, right? But it is feminine. So it's what we call, right, a second declension feminine. Is that right? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so it looks like it's a second declension masculine, but adjectives always match the noun they modify in gender, case, and number. And so this little adjective, this article is giving me that's right, it's a feminine word, right? Like Jesus, I think they give you that sentence, right? I am the way, ego eimi, he hadas. So there it is again, he with hadas. Hadas sure does look masculine, but it's got that feminine. Okay? All right. So that means, by the way, just if we wanted to kind of check ourselves, so that means these both must be the same gender, case, and number. Unless our book has an error, right? Now, is Clayton Croy, is he perfect? No, he's not. Does he make errors? Well, presumably so. However, as I tell my students, when I was teaching 5th grade, this is like a long time ago, I was teaching 5th grade and then 3rd grade, and I've taught kind of everybody, but the 3rd graders and the 4th graders and the 5th graders always seem to like clamp on to like, but wait a second, you said there could be an error in the book. And that's true. I could be. But then I would say, and what's more likely? That I and Clayton Croy, through multiple publishings of this book, have made an error and it's survived, or that you're wrong? Good. All right. So all I have to say then is we can just rule this out, right? Very, very scientific method here. All right. So we said they have to match in gender, case, and number, which means that whether we look at te or eremo, we should get the same answer on all three of these things. Okay. So what gender is it? I think you already said. Good. So our adjective we could say is like the first declension adjective. But it's really not. It's just its own definite article thing. So we've got a second declension for our noun. Haste makes waste. Haste makes waste habits. Okay. I'll just put them both. All right. Te. So this is a definite article. This one's second declension. You said what gender? Feminine. Good. And they're both good. They're both feminine. Okay. What case? And that was kind of your question, right? And number. And those kind of go together. So now our question becomes whether I'm looking at my definite article te or I'm looking at my noun eremo, they should be the same case and number. Do you see what case and number it looks like they are? What are they? Dative. Good. They're both dative singular. That's totally fine. So they're both dative singulars. And that, now we could kind of take one further level. Why are they in the dative? For what reason? Good. Explain that. Okay, good. Now, good. Let's nuance our language here. Is N dative?
Well, it takes dative out.
Good. And what do we call the word after it? Good. Okay, good. So that means, I think then that means that you're saying N is a preposition. Is that what you're saying? All right. So what we just said is prepositions have this special thing where they make the word that goes with them. We need a, what is this word? They make the word that goes with them take a specific case, or cases, depending on which preposition we're looking at. Now, what do we call that word that goes with the preposition? Good, excellent. So they make the object of the preposition take a certain case. So let's put that together with this sentence. Can you tell me why te eremo is in the dative? Boom, that's it, right? And if we can give a sentence like that, by the way, this is how I give tests. Just tell me why that's in the dative. And if you can tell me by saying, well, te eremo is the object of the preposition en, and en is a preposition that makes its object go in the dative case, therefore it has to be in the dative. That sounds like a pretty thorough test to me, right? If you can give me that, because that's hard, right? It's hard, you're like, oh, wait, it makes the thing, what is that, right? Like, that's hard. It's hard to give the names of things, like accuracy and precision, myself, right? Okay, so good. So your problem was, I think, you assumed, well, that's got to be a genitive plural. And so where's the new on the end of it? And if it was a genitive plural, it would need a new on the end of it. But it's not a genitive plural, right? It's the things that we know that just aren't so that get us into trouble. Mark Twain. Okay. Anything else on that one? Yes. Okay, good. So let's keep going with our parts of speech for just a second now. So we just talked about prepositions. And prepositions give us information like when or where, for example, like on the dot or in the room or something like that. When, where, or other adverbial kinds of information. But what part of speech is hug you, or hug you? Pardon. What is that thing? It is an adjective. All right. Now, adjectives do what? We said prepositions are these things that give us like temporal or locational information. And in English, actually, as well as Latin and Greek, they make their object take an objective case. So, for example, to him, or on her, not on she, or on I, no, on me. So they actually do the same thing in English. It's just we don't have as many cases. Okay? Adjectives, though, what do adjectives do? Okay, so we could ask this two ways. We could say, what's the job of an adjective? Or we could say, how do adjectives function in a sentence? What is adjectival behavior? Does that make sense? So like prepositional behavior is they say like, hey, if you want to be my object, you need to get in the right case. And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever you say, N. And it's like, get in the dative. And Eremos is like, all right, I'll get in the dative. Okay, but how do adjectives work? They're not like bossy people that say, get in the right case. They're like chameleons. And how do they work? Good. So we can put it this way. Adjectives match the noun. If we want to be more precise, we could call that a substantive, because it also could be a pronoun. Like the woman is kind. Or she is kind. Sorry, that was a noun. She is kind, so she is now kind. So anyway. So it could be a pronoun or a noun or something else, but that's what we're going to talk about now. Okay, but we'll just say, for simplicity's sake, they have to match the noun they modify, or it modifies, in gender, case, and number. So that's how they act, right? That's how they work. But I want to come back to this idea of, but what do adjectives do? Like, prepositions tell us where in the desert, or when, at 9 o'clock, or to what extent, to the best of my ability. What do adjectives do? Good, that's great. Yeah, so they give us more information. They could be color, right? Black, white, tan, green. It could be size, big, small, little. It could be characteristic. Like, for example, today in class we saw the cruelest. That's an adjective. Cruelest people. Cruelest city, actually, in the context. So they tell us things. They all, how many, right? 7 swans. Swimming? What are the swans doing? 6 swans? How many swans are there? 7 swans 6 geese a laying, 7 swans swimming. Are they swimming? Are they? Yeah. There's okay. Whatever they're doing, right? Okay. Students know if they get me on song lyrics, I'll just spend the whole time. Okay, so that's only partly true. Okay, there are 3 kinds of adjectives, and most of us, like if you're anything like me, you only actually learned kind of like one form of an adjective, the 6 geese, the brown horse. And that is just incomplete. So that is actually called an attributive adjective. It gives an attribute of a noun, usually. Almost always it's a noun. Very rarely would it be anything else. So again, that's just the brown. Actually, the is also one, right? The brown horse. It directly modifies a noun. But then we have this other kind of adjective, and we're actually going to talk about it today. A predicate adjective. What's a predicate adjective? Well, what's a predicate? Uh-oh. Okay, the predicate goes with the, in your grammar mind, it's in there. It's the blank and the predicate. Yeah, starts with an S. Subject and the predicate. Okay, all right, I'm less nervous. Okay, so a subject is a, oh golly, we're back to that question again. Oh my goodness. What's a subject? Okay, so what's a subject that it's renaming? Okay, but what if it's like he walks? Or a pronoun. Okay, good. Oh golly, this is getting hard. Okay, should we do this at an adult level, or do we want to stick to like 3rd or 4th grade? 3rd or 4th grade, that's totally fine. Okay, so a 3rd or a 4th grader, dead serious. So a 3rd or a 4th grader, the subject is the thing that does the action. I run, we hit, Susie falls, whatever. Then when they get to like end of 3rd grade, 4th grade, the subject becomes the thing talked about. For example, she is nice, or he is a boy, right? They are girls, whatever. So it's not just an action, it could also be a linking verb or a stative verb, which is a slightly bigger category. All right, we'll just fast forward to 7th grade for just a second. And then you learn about these verbs called passive verbs. So not Caesar kills Gauls, but Caesar is killed by Brutus. But Caesar's not doing the killing, he's now being killed. And that's a totally different sentence pattern. That's a passive verb. It comes from Latin patuor, meaning I suffer. So when we first learn, we go, okay, the subject is the doer. I walk. That's great. Subject, predicate. Predico, we get the word preach from this word. Predico just means to talk about it, to proclaim about it. So what's our subject? I, and what am I proclaiming about I? I'm proclaiming I walk. Or it could get more complicated, right? Like, I walk to the store, or I walk quickly to the store, or I walk with Susie quickly to the store. And we could keep speaking about what I am, what I do, right? Whatever. So far, so good. Okay. So what's a predicate adjective? Okay, I'll give you a bad answer. It's an adjective in the predicate. What does that mean? Well, it has to do with a linking verb. Susie is kind. How is that a predicate adjective? Well, let's go this way. What's an attributive adjective? The brown horse. Kind Susie. Okay, in English word order, we could say it this way. It comes before it, or it's right next to it. Again, if it was poetic, you could say, or if you wanted to do like William Shatner, Brown, the horse. Who is that William Shatner? Yeah. Isn't that William Shatner? Who does that? Anyway, whatever that is, you want to get all poetic with it, okay? Or Yoda, if you prefer Yoda, from, tired. Actually, but that's a predicate. Because watch, now he'll go, tired I am. That's before it, but it's not right next to it. It's a predicate. How? I am tired. Susie is kind. How's that different? It's on the other side of a linking verb. So a predicate adjective, instead of standing right next to or right with the noun, it is joined to it with a linking verb. So again, we'll say the horse is brown. And the big so what here is now we're using is to put brown in the predicate rather than in the subject. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, it's not really saying something different. Right? The horse is brown, the brown horse. There's not like a difference of meaning there. It's just the way we've structured it is different. And that could be for metrical reasons, meter. The holly and the ivy when they are both full grown. There you go. When they are grown, full grown. Good.
Okay.
Good.
Because I went back and checked
Good. That's this chapter, actually. Okay? So, there's a third use of the adjective. The just will be declared righteous. The just? Batman captures evil. Or we could say the evil. The bad, the wicked. What is that? Because I thought adjectives were supposed to match the noun they modify in gender, case, and number, and there you don't have anything. Batman does good. Good what? Good. Joker does evil. Evil what? Evil acts. Evil things. Captures wicked people. And this is very, very common. This is called the substantive use of the adjective. The substantive use. So here we might see something like, for example, the just will inherit the earth. If I'm going to quote it, I might as well quote it. The meek will inherit the earth. Meek what? Meek. Good, the meek one. Meek people. Meek men? That could get us in a little trouble, right? Because maybe he actually means children. Like, for example, when he says, blessed are the children. for theirs is the kingdom of God. Okay, so, all right, so this is what we've got here. So I'll just let you know. So when I see an adjective, I'm going to have to ask these questions. Well, what kind of adjective is it? And our first question is, well, you were exactly right. That's a genitive singular. And so my question would be, okay, well, what noun or pronoun is in the genitive singular? Who or what is holy? Excellent. So I have two options in this sentence. Here's option one. The holy law. Now, if you watched my finger, does that seem likely or unlikely? Excellent. Now, you could make an argument that, well, they are both masculine genitive singular, but the fact that you have to jump like that makes it very unlikely. Now, if you were reading poetry, it's fair game. Poetry's different. Poetry does its own little thing. But when I see peri, right, what part of speech is peri? Peri, pardon me. It's a preposition, which means it's going to be followed by excellent. And we call that thing a good, the object of the preposition. And usually how prepositions work is they form, I like to think of it like a protective shield. You only can play ball with what is within the pop. Now you could have an adjective in there. For example, concerning the holy law. You could have it over there. But we don't. And if you don't have something inserted right here, or it could come, right here, either places. If you don't have it there, it is very unlikely it belongs in here. Very unlikely. Just so unlikely. It just doesn't belong. It just doesn't belong. Okay? So, good eye. Do you see anything else, genitive, singular, and again, masculine or neuter, to be fair? Oh, huios? Yeah, huios. Good. No worries. Good. Excellent. Stick with it. So stick with the rules. This is essential. Make it play by the rules. And my rule is that adjectives match the noun they modify in gender, case, and number. And I will die on that hill. Of the Holy One. So there's nothing that it is matching. That's exactly right. So when we say adjectives match the noun or pronoun they modify in gender, case, and number, we're really talking about the attributive or predicate adjective. And it's not that it's not true about the substantive, it's just matching a holy male, the holy. So that one we actually could say the son of the holy man. That would be totally fine. Where am I getting man from? The holy man? The gender of the adjective. For example, if it said tes hagias, pardon me. I'm going to get it, feminine genitive singular and a pure alpha, rho or vowel. Then I would say the son of the holy woman, because I made my substantive feminine. And so it does match the noun it modifies, it's just invisible. And I can do that because in Greek, I can genderify my adjective. In English, we can't. Right? Wicked. The wicked woman, the wicked man. Did the adjective change? No. The wicked dog. The wicked men. The wicked women. The wicked boy. The wicked boys. The wicked girl. The wicked girls. We have no gender. We have no number in our adjectives. So in English, we really don't have that option. Go ahead. That's right. So then context would be our biggest clue. So here we have holy, the holy. Now it could be the holy thing. Again, just depending on context. That's where, like, as a translator, you'd have to make the call. Okay, do I think that neuter is is really possible, not just like not just possible in the form, because you're right, that is a neuter form also. But is it possible, right, in the context? So is it a holy thing or is it a holy man? It could be either. Again, the form does not determine it. The form just lets me know, hey, it's one of these two things. And now the context is, okay, the son of the holy thing teaches the sisters in the desert.
But it's only one possibility.
It is. It is. But now let's think of it like we never saw the Greek. Let's imagine I'm reading my Bible and you've translated it. The Son of the Holy One. What have you lost? About what? Yeah, and what specifically have you lost about him? Or rather, about the holy. Good. Because one could be masculine or feminine or maybe even neuter. But in the Greek, no, that's masculine. Again, could be neuter. It is very, very unlikely that it's neuter. And so, as a translator, this is a really important way that we love people through our translation. Is, again, if I give them, for example, of the Holy One, I have snipped the gender off of that adjective. Oh, sorry. That is what's called dramatic irony, where the speaker was not aware of the irony. Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, my God said you got circumcised.
Oh, there you go. Well, so you've got circumcision on the mind. Okay, I do not. Therefore, I did not think about it. Okay. So anyway, all that to say is I always feel like as a translator, my job is to love the person who doesn't know Greek by, to the best of my ability, bringing out what is in the text that they just couldn't see. Not because they're stupid or whatever. They don't know that, right? And so that's where I was reading through the Bible, but in a different translation I haven't read in a while, and it's funny. Every time they translate a participle as a finite verb. So, for example, the Greek literally says like, "And rising from the water he saw," but they translated it, "And he rose from the water and saw." And every time they do change a participle to a finite verb, they put a little asterisk there. Because Greek, in Hebrew, but Greek especially uses participles all over the place, where in English we just don't. We just want it to be like, he came up and saw, not coming up he saw. Like you just don't, we don't talk that way. But anyway, the way that translation does it is they put a little asterisk just to go, hey, this is a participle, but we translate it as a finite noun, so that you can know. And that's the way they kind of try to have their cake and eat it too a little bit as translators. So anyway, that again takes us back to kind of like translation theory. And so for me, and I think for us, we want to always ask the question of, how can I, to the best of my ability, give my eyes to people who may never learn Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic or Latin or whatever it is? How do I bring that out? And sometimes the only way to bring it out is to put like a big old footnote and says, okay, Paul just used the exact same word here. Like I'm talking tomorrow on Romans 8, and it's like he uses the same word in Romans 8 that he hasn't used since Romans 5, and that's his way to like keyword it in. And sometimes translations don't use the same word, and so they might miss that special word stitch that Paul is using. Anyway. So as a translator, that's kind of your burden, I think. How do I love people well? I won't belabor this one. You're welcome. All right. Well, with that said, let's get to the new stuff. So we're going to talk about pronouns today. Pronouns. Oh, paper towel. All right, so we've talked about preposition. Prepositions are these words, they tell us the when and the where, or and the how, we could say. And then they take their substantive, whether that's a noun or a pronoun, or a substantive adjective. For example, to the wicked, or for the wicked people. or the wicked women, or the wicked men, or whatever. Anyway, so that's how prepositions, what they are and how they work. Adjectives, they tell us more about something, usually. But even when they're substantive, they do tell us more about something. They just kind of have omitted the noun because they can do that in that language. It's a little harder for us. But how they work then, right, is they, in Greek, they match the noun or pronoun they modify in gender, case, and number. Okay, that's how they work. But then they could work in these three different ways. They could be attributive, standing right next to it, for simplicity's sake, the brown horse. They could be predicate on the other side of a linking verb, the horse is brown. Or they could be a substantive. Again, the wicked will not stand in the judgment. That's Psalm 1. Okay, so we are going to go to prepositions today. We're going to go to pronouns today. But of course, before we go to pronouns, what do we have to talk about? Nouns, good, which we haven't talked about today. Oops. So we're going to go to pronouns in just a second. But first, let's just go to nouns. What's a noun? What is a noun? Good. Person, place, thing, or idea. Now, this is kind of cool. The word noun comes from a Latin word nomen, meaning name. It's anything that you could give a name to. Rereading Genesis right now, and the first thing I think Adam does is name things. God brings animals to Adam, and he nouns them. That's actually what's called the liberal art of grammar, is the ability to name. So my inability to name precision versus accuracy, that was a failure of grammar. I didn't know what it meant. So noun simply means a name, and by that we mean a name given to a person, place, or thing. So or idea, that's fine. Sorry, when I threw up, it was still person, place, or thing. But yeah, it could be an idea like goodness, love, a thing like a chair, right, inanimate, a place like McDonald's, and a person like Ronald. I don't know why McDonald's is in my mind, but there you go. Okay, so that's just it. It's anything you can name, point at, and go. As someone who has young kids, right, it's really fun to see your kids learn to name things. Oh, that's what that is. Okay, all right, so that's a noun. What's a pronoun? You have like amateur nouns and pronouns. Oh. I apologize for everything. Okay, no, that's not what pro means. What does pro mean? Good. Actually, pro in this case means takes the place of. So, or in place of. In place of what? Well, in place of a noun. But what's a noun? A noun's a name. So a pronoun just means in place of the name, right? So instead of this being book, which would be a specific noun, book, versus paper, versus computer, pronouns would be, in English, it, and it. Yes, look at that. And Lucas becomes he, and I become he. And so notice what pronouns do. What do they do in effect? Right? If we had 78 women in here, you would all just be she. What have we done? Excellent. That's it. We removed that specificity, right? Do you know my name? Do you know my name? Or do you not? Or am I just a generic, right, non-specific thing? And then so that's what they do, right? It's a generic word used in place of the actual name. I don't mean proper in the sense of like Lucas versus man. I mean proper in the sense of this is the name that belongs to you that doesn't belong to me. Or the name bottle that belongs to this and not to this computer. Right? It's specific to this thing. Okay. All right. So that's all that pronoun is. So it is a generic name. Or you could say a generic title. Maybe that works a little better. Okay, so then how do pronouns work? That's what it is. It's just a generic title, name, he, she, it, thing. Almost kind of works that way in English. How does it work? Well, let's break the rules first. Ready? Lucas is here. His is very bored. His is very bored. That's broken, isn't it? Okay, let's try another one. Lucas is here. Him is very bored. That's not good either. Okay, Mr. McCord is teaching. They are a good teacher. Okay, no, that's not good. Let's try again. Mr. McCord is teaching. She is a very good teacher. Oh, that's not good either. So we've broken the rules of how a pronoun works in several ways. How do pronouns work? What are the rules I've broken? Okay. Yes and no. Let's try that again. Ready? Okay. Mr. McCord is teaching. They listen to he. What's wrong? But wait a second. What's he replacing? But wait a second. I thought Mr. McCord is the subject. Isn't Mr. McCord the subject? So I should use a subject pronoun. Excellent. So let's refine our rule. For example, he is wrong, but so is her. He is wrong, but so is them. Okay. Excellent. Okay. All right. Good. Okay, so we've got then kind of two things we need to distinguish between. The one we call the antecedent. The antecedent. Anta or unta, before, and cudo, this is kind of cool. It means I fall. So it's the noun being replaced. It's the noun that falls before. So Mr. McCord is that noun that's being replaced. Pardon me. It's the noun before. I got so excited I stopped. I forgot to drink over a couple hours. Okay. All right. So I appreciate that. So the pronoun has to match its antecedent in what two things? Good. That's why her is wrong. That's why them is wrong. Her is wrong gender. Good. We don't have to go down that road tonight. Okay, good. Her is wrong gender. Them is wrong number. Good. So we can see those rules by breaking them. We can discover them. Okay, so a pronoun, here's the way it works. Number one, it matches the antecedent or its antecedent in gender and number. But, or and, what's this second thing we saw? We need to figure something else out too, don't we? So I got the gender and number, right? The gender and number have to come from this, from the antecedent. So I know that my gender is masculine, right? And my number is singular. What has to come? Well, what's left? Got gender, I got number. What am I missing? Okay, what do you mean?
So, like, we know from context that
Okay. Okay, good. So we do, right, to be able to even know gender and number, we have to go, okay, what is the antecedent? That's exactly right. And sometimes when we write in English, for example, if we piled up a bunch of nouns, we could be in trouble with our pronoun. For example, Jesus loved Peter and John. He loved Jesus back. Peter or John, right? So that's ambiguity. That's bad writing. Unless it's intentional, which when we're teaching most of us, myself included, how to write, it's not intentional. It's bad writing. Okay, so we've got this connection. There's something, how do I know to him? Excellent. So its job, or again, its case, right? Case is determined by whatever, role, place, function, again, whatever synonym we want to pile up there, in its clause, right? So here in this clause, they listen to he, they listen to his, they listen to him, object of the preposition. So we need our objective use of the pronoun in English. Okay? We can correct that. But notice I didn't get that right from the antecedent. The antecedent was actually a subject. So in Greek, the subject will go into the nominative case. But here, it's a little tricky because the verb listen is its own special thing. Listen can take its object in the genitive or the accusative. So just ignore that for just a second. But anyway, if it was normal, it would be in the accusative case, right? They hear him. Just for simplicity. Direct object. Okay? So that's the big so what of pronouns. And I would say, actually, the good news is that's the hardest thing for us to understand about pronouns, because it just involves being very clear about the way it works. So one is, okay, what is a pronoun? Oh, it's just this like general word, I, you, he, they. It's this general word that takes the place of a particular noun. Okay, we're kind of comfortable with that, right, as adults. That's really hard for kids. There are 8 parts of speech. We don't have verb up here yet, but like they're hard, right? We don't have verb and adverb, though we've touched on them as well. Oh, I think we've touched them all. Have you had interjections like alas or woe or anyway, maybe you haven't had those technically, but anyway, we've had conjunctions, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, prepositions, nouns, and pronouns. That's kind of it for the parts of speech. Okay, and I always feel like, man, if you're in 6th grade or 7th grade and you've got a good grasp on the 8 parts of speech, you're in a great place. And I say good relatively. You're going to constantly be refining that. Again, as evidenced by this room. And same thing for me. I specialized and majored in ancient languages, and it wasn't until I was teaching and students were asking me questions like, well, wait a second, what's that? And I was like, oh, dadgummit, I don't know what that is. I'm going to have to learn language. I'm going to have to learn grammar. Darn it. Because you don't learn. You just learn enough to like pass the test and get on to the next chapter and have a good GPA, right? That's the goal of everything. Okay. All right. So all I have to say is that's going to be the harder thing. And as we add now the last part of speech, so I just say this to encourage you, as we add the last part of speech, be encouraged by that, but also remember, I'm going to have to, for at least another chapter, keep going back to the basics. What is this thing, and how does it work? What is this thing, and how does it work? Oh, that's a pronoun. Oh, okay, so it takes the place of a noun, and it matches the antecedent, the noun it takes the place of in gender and case, or gender and number. See, look at my mistake. But its case is determined by its job, its function, and its clause. Okay, a noun. Okay, nouns are these like things you name, and their case is determined by their job and their clause. Oh, that's kind of cool. That just saying those two things made me think of pronouns and nouns are kind of similar, aren't they? And that's probably what we would expect, is for them to be similar. I mean, they got kind of similar names. Prepositions. Oh, golly, what's the and so running those 8 parts of speech over and over again. How do they work? What are they and how do they work? What's the nature of a preposition? How does it function? What's the nature of an adjective? Okay. All right. So let's look at now our pronouns officially. So in your recitation, pardon me, I gave you, and we highlighted these today, the declensions of ego and su. So ego is I, first person pronoun, singular, and then you see the plural on the other side of it, hemes. Hemes. Su, second person pronoun, su, singular, and humes, plural. And just to highlight that, Hey Mace and who may seem really similar, don't they, right? So that's just going to be something memory-wise to just be on the lookout for. I have made that mistake. Actually, in our recitation, we were learning Romans 8 in Greek in our class, and I've substituted humes and hemes several times. Actually, humin and hamin, but anyway, hamin and humin. So just be on the lookout for that. It's an easy one to go like, what's that? Is that y'all or us? Who is that? Anyway, easy mistake, at least for me. Easy mistake. Okay, so first person and second person. Before we move on, first person, what does that mean? This kind of takes us back to verbs in one sense, doesn't it? I feel like we talked about that with verbs. Oh gosh. I ate so much barbecue over Christmas break, I don't even know. Okay, so what was that with verbs? Right, we had those like first person, second person, and third person, singular and plural. Excellent. The speaker is the actor, right? So I teach. I am talking and I am teaching. Whereas you couldn't say I teach, right? You would have to say why. What's different? First person, the actor is the speaker. The speaker is the actor, right? They're the same person. Second person. What? Okay, they're good. There is a second person. But that is really important because there could be a second person and a third person as well. Oh, no. Okay, so what's the second person? What's the difference between you and she? If we're treating people like human beings, by the way, which I recommend. Excellent. So we have our speaker, right? And our speaker is now saying that the person I'm talking to, in this case y'all, right? Y'all are the actors. But you're not the talkers. I'm the talker. You're the actor. Or vice versa, right? So second person is about a talker and his or her audience. He's talking to them. Third person? Presumably, right? Hopefully, right? It would be really, again, this is like traditional, like Dickensian kind of like, now, what did Mr. Fitzgerald get wrong? You know, and he's like over there cowering, right? Like that's very inhumane because you're treating someone who's in the audience like they're not in the audience. It doesn't have to be inhumane, right? You could say, you know, okay, what did David say there? Right? And that'd be okay. We have to be on the lookout for that, right? Okay, so the third person, generally speaking, right, we have the speaker, and then the actor is presumably not in the audience, or again, we're talking about them, not to them, right? Okay, there's the difference. Okay, so pronouns then, okay. But that was verbs. Okay, now pronouns, so now we've got a first person pronoun. What does that mean? Okay, so a first person pronoun takes the place of what? The microphone on. Yes. What's a first person noun? Again, you can never get tired of these questions. Okay, I'll suggest this. There's no such thing as a first person noun, right? There's not like a first person water bottle, a second person water, and a third person water bottle. Everybody agree? Right? Lucas is Lucas is Lucas. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, you who are in heaven. Who's in heaven? Oh, I wasn't trying to give you a big theological stumper here. Who's in heaven? Good, but that's not what it says. It doesn't say our Father is in heaven. Who's in heaven? You are in heaven. But wait a second, it's not you, right? It's our Father. Okay, wait. So how does you become Father? Okay, good. So, because you is what part of speech? It's a pronoun, which means it replaces a noun. And what noun is it replacing? Father. Excellent. So you is a second person pronoun. And I need the second person. Why do I need the second person again? Oh, no? Go back to what's second person about? Okay, good. The one spoken to is the subject of the verb, right? Is the actor. Although there we have a linking verb. Oh, goodness me. Oh, so complicated. Okay, so I'm talking to our Father, and the Father are in heaven. And see, that sounds really weird to you, doesn't it? Because you don't like me to say things like, Lucas are in the class. Actually, I could. If in English I put in a little pronoun, right? Because you don't like me to say Lucas. Even though it's true, Lucas are in the class. Because I'm talking to you. Which, by the way, gives us a clue that nouns in English are in what person? Watch, here we go. Ready? Lucas am in the class. Does that sound right to you? Lucas are in the class. Lucas is in the class. What person? I am, you are, he is. Yeah, nouns in English are, let me see if I can say that. Nouns in English are always in the third person, singular or plural, man versus man. I can't ask the question right now about Greek or Latin. Yeah, we've got qui. Qui. Qui is a third person relative pronoun. Or we would look at it as a who. Which is why it's confusing when you say who art. Because it's really you who are. But we can't say who are. Not the question form, but like my dad who are. My dad, you who are in San Antonio. No, that sounds so weird to us because we need the you there to help us. Okay. This is different than how we do it. Here's the big so what. Pronouns take the place of nouns. Right? So if I'm talking to you, I can't say Lucas. I've got to say you. If I'm talking to you, I can't say woman. I've got to say you. If I'm talking to y'all, I can't say the students. The students, plural, y'all plural. The students are second person plural in the class. I have to say students, y'all are in the class. In English, we will not tolerate a noun being used in not the third person. It just is so weird. Which is why when I ask, our Father who art in heaven, you don't know what person that verb is. Even though it's got to be second person singular because who am, who is, who art. And so it's weird because it's mimicking Latin in Greek style. So when we go to pronouns, we're finding these generic words where we can't, especially in English, we can't have a noun. You just can't have it. And in Latin and in Greek, you don't need it. So for example, I don't need to say I am. Or in this case, ago below. Why don't I need to say ago below? Good, excellent. So this is how we can get all the way to chapter 7 without having seen these things. Because they've been hidden in the verb ending all along. So then let me ask, why in the world would Jesus say, as he does 7 times in the Gospel of John, ego and me? I am. Why does he say ego and me? And it could be, by the way, because John's a fisherman writing Greek, by the way. But let's say it's not that. It's emphasis. He doesn't have to say it. I know my conjugation of ami, ast, esmen, este, ac. Jesus and John knew that conjugation. They know I, as the subject, first person singular subject pronoun, is right there in the verb. I don't need it. So why would I add it? Emphasis. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way. Right? Before Abraham was, I am. And they rightly say, oh, well, you have to die for that. Because he's not making a generic thing. He's actually emphasizing his claim by using a pronoun. Okay? So in English, again, and this is just to see the difference. In English, I can't just say am, right? I can't do that in English, even though, to be fair, you actually could say am must be an I, right? What, they am? But in English, we always have these pronouns. They've always got to be there in English. Not so in Greek. In Greek, they're for emphasis. Whereas in English, they are essential. Except for imperatives, right? Go to your room. Imperatives don't need them in English. But everything else has to have a pronoun or a noun or a substantive. Okay. It has to be there. If it's not there, it's a broken sentence, right? Like, do you not know English? Like, you got to have a pronoun there. You got to have a subject. But what's tricky is now we're going to start to see, and again, this could throw us off. Now we're going to start to see these pronouns being used that in some ways, again, are there already in the verb. Okay? And there are going to be two ways that we're going to see these. Yeah, let's finish this and then we'll talk about third person for just a second. So first, we are going to see them with accents. Ego, emu, emoy, eme. But you will also see them in these unaccented enclitic or proclitic forms, which is just a fancy way to say they don't have accents. So you could see ego. Here it became grave because it's followed by an accented word. But again, in your declension, you'll see it as ego. It could be unaccented, which is a way to take slight emphasis off of it. So if ego with an accent is like 2 exclamation points, ego with no accent, you can think of it as like a slighter emphasis, but still probably an emphasis. And then you, of course, have just the, right, nothing without it completely. Okay, ego says stuff like that. Mu, moi, and meh. Those are the unaccented forms of the others, the oblique cases, the non-nominative case. Okay? So that's a less emphasized. So they took off the epsilon. The second person forms, su, su, soy, se, they look the exact same. You don't drop anything. You just take off the F. So you have su, accented, and you have su, unaccented. Genitive singular, you have su, accented, and you have su, unaccented. Right? But even that could be tricky because, for example, in our prayer, Jésus Christou, huie David, eleison me, me can give its accent to a previous one. We're not going to dig a ton into that because it's not a major point for today. Okay? But it actually gave its accent back. And that's something that these little pronouns can do. Okay? Or rather, that's inaccurate. They use the shorter enclitic word, and when that happens, it can give it a second accent. So it didn't take this accent. It did something slightly different. Okay? But that's where this double accent came from, is the unaccented and it meh, which is kind of interesting because when the man's asking for Jesus' help, he's actually de-emphasizing himself. Have mercy, almost like, have mercy on me. Not like, have mercy on me. So he's like, Help me out. Not help me out. If that difference kind of makes sense if you think about it. Whereas Jesus is going to sing, I am. He's actually heavily emphasizing the I part of those sayings. Probably. It can, but for like nouns, for example, or adjectives, the way emphasis is placed on it is by positioning. So, for example, Paul in Romans 8:1 says, Uden aranun katakima. No, therefore, there is now condemnation. And our English translations will say, there is therefore now no condemnation. They've lost the emphasis of none, which Paul sprung. Even though the noun that adjective modifies is 4 words later. So that's really hard. Emphasis is really hard to bring into another language. I don't know of any translators that say like, none, or therefore none is there condemnation. Or, I don't know of anybody who does that. So that's truly like lost in translation. I'm unaware of anyone. Unless you did something like, there is in no way any condemnation whatsoever. Like you could do it like that. Like my Greek teacher used to say things like when a verb was emphasized, he would say things like, Jesus went straight for it. Or like, Jesus made a beeline. That was like, it was from Mississippi. Anyway, so like, that's how he would try to do it is like, for example, you wouldn't just say like very harsh, you would say brutal. Like, oh man, they're really spicing up this adjective or something. So that's really hard. It's really hard to bring over. Okay, so pronouns. The first and second person pronoun, by the way, they're the only ones that have like their own special declension also. Third person pronouns look just like second and first person, or first and second declension noun. So for example, if you open up your book to page 36, you'll see it. And we'll just look at the masculine as an example here. Autos, autu, auto, auton, autoi, auton, autois, autus. Identical to the second declension masculine forms. And that's, by the way, why I don't put it in the recitation, is because you're not learning new forms. Again, aute, autes, aute, autain, autai, auton, autais, autus. Identical to the first declension feminine. Pure alpha or pure eta or mixed? Good, pure eta. And then neuter, the only thing that's tricky maybe a little bit about the neuter is what's happened. Ta, autu, auto, auta. Auta, auton, autois, auta. What happened? Can you see the change? Okay, good. That's a great observation. There's no vocative, and that kind of makes sense for a pronoun, right? He. And doesn't really exist. Think of a neuter noun. Have we had ploy on yet? Boat or ergon? Excellent. That's exactly right. So here, this is one of these instances where if you learn those nominative forms, autos, aute, auta, you're kind of good. Neuters are always the same in the nominative and the accusative. Kind of one of the tricky things, but kind of nice when you're trying to memorize your form. Okay. So anyway, the forms are the same. Os, u, o, on. A, ace, a, a. So nothing new there. Okay? The other thing is you're going to see now your linking verb, a me. You're going to see your linking verb, a me. And this will be the last thing we kind of talk about. So earlier we talked about our predicate adjective. Oh, that's my 5 minute. I left my watch at home. So I was like, I'll give myself a 5-minute warning. Okay. Anyway, so we talked about this predicate adjective. The horse is brown. Jesus is a man. Jesus is God, right? Someone get accused of heresy. So Jesus is God, is man only. Okay, all right. One thing that we can see from our adjective, for example, let's just say something simple, like let's say the Christ, let's say the Christ is beautiful. Kalos or kalos? I can't remember. I'm going to go with that just for this thing. Part of speech, beautiful, good. Adjectives always match the noun they modify in gender, case, and number. Right? What gender, case, and number do we have here? Yeah. Case. Nominative. Number. Okay. Agree? Okay. But I now have two nominatives, don't I? Sorry, I don't have any art form. Now, why do I have two nominatives? Okay, good. So adjectives have to match the noun they modify in gender, case, and number. That's okay. But if I ask this mathematically, the verb I am, are, is, what mathematical symbol is that verb like? Good, it's like equal. So watch what happens here. My Latin vocabulary is man, andros, that's third declension. Andros, thank you. Sorry. I'll just say. What part of speech is Christos? Well, it's a noun. It's technically a participle, but it functions as an anointed one or king, anointed king, something like that. Like a substantive participle. The Christ, right? So not an adjective, but still masculine, nominative, and singular. Why? For the same reason that it's I am he, not I am him. But if you say I am he, I am she, people are looking at you, will look at you like, that's not right, right? Because it won't sound right to them. But it is right. Why? Yes. Why? Go back to mathematics. A linking verb is like what mathematical symbol? It's like an equal sign. Well, let's just do some grammatical math. This nominative is what kind of nominative? Well, so far, what's the only way nominatives have been used? Subject nominative. So this noun is a nominative because it's the subject of the verb is. This one's also nominative, but it's not the subject nominative. There's got to be another kind of nominative out there. This is a predicate nominative. And the predicate nominative will only occur with a linking verb that acts like an equal sign. I equals he. I am he. Nominative equals nominative. Just like with our predicate adjective, nominative equaled nominative. But here, this nominative is a nominative. Why? Why is kalos a nominative? And adjectives always match the noun they modify in gender, case, and number. This nominative is also, this noun, is also a nominative, but it's a noun. And nouns cases don't come from the noun they modify, because nouns don't modify nouns, right? Nouns cases are always determined by what? How do I know if it's a nominative or a genitive or a dative or an accusative or a vocative? Good. So if that's true, what job is Christ in this sentence? Good. Or we could say it this way, right? It's giving us something that is true about the subject, that it equals the subject, right? Just like, again, if we did it mathematically, right, we would just say 1 equals 1. That's it. It's nothing more complicated than that. But we're used to what being true, or we could say it this way. What's the other case up to this point we've always seen on the other side of a verb? For example, I see the ships. An accusative. Why? Because it's a direct object. Good. So this tells us maybe something really important about linking verbs. They don't take direct objects. And that could maybe lead us back to, oh wait, because what's a direct object? Excellent. Where's the action in this sentence? Where's the action? What? Is there an action? Good. So we call them stative verbs. That's kind of the big category. So exist or name is actually in this category. So exist, be, name. These are stative verbs, and the kind of linking verb is like a subset of that. But anyway, the big idea is there is no action. It's just, it is, or becomes is another common verb in this kind of family of, oh yeah, you're not impacting anything. You're not directly acting on anything. You just have this category of existence, you know. So there's no, oh, I punch or kick, whatever, the chair. Well, the chair is brown, or it is a chair. Nothing going on. There's no direct object. There's no indirect object. Now there could be a genitive, for example, the chair of Miss Schvanevel is brown. But there can't be a direct or an indirect object because we don't have a verb that has oomph to it or whatever, that has action to it, okay? So that's a really common mistake, which leads me back to the last thing I'll say. As you're doing your homework, it brings us back to let the verbs guide you. If you have an action verb like I throw or I see or whatever, I destroy, we could have an accusative direct object. But if I have some form of a me, there is not. That means I'm officially 5 minutes over. Okay. If we have a linking verb like a me, there's no way we have an accusative direct object. We can't, because there's no action to directly impact something. I wonder what the punches sound like on the microphone. I'm sure not good. Okay. Anyway, pause. We'll stop there. I feel like that was like grammar, like post-Christmas grammar, just like download. If anything, I pray that and hope that is truly like humbling to just to be reminded of, like, oh yeah, there's just a lot of like precision and care with this stuff that takes years, at least for me. It takes years and years and years to learn these things. So anyway, so don't be discouraged. You got this. This is actually a good, for most students, they feel like this is a pretty good chapter because we're just making explicit, stuff that we've kind of already seen. We're just now, giving the actual. Okay. All right. Thank y'all.